In a stunning legal victory that could redefine the balance of power between federal and state authorities, a federal appeals court has just cleared the way for the Trump administration to send Oregon National Guard troops into Portland. But is this a bold step to restore order, or a dangerous erosion of local autonomy? If you're following the ongoing tensions in Portland, this ruling might just be the spark that ignites even more heated debates. But here's where it gets controversial. While some see it as protecting federal property, others argue it's trampling on citizens' rights to protest. Let's break this down step by step, so even if you're new to these political showdowns, you can follow along easily. On a crisp October afternoon in 2025, specifically at 6:17 p.m., a panel of Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals judges made waves by overturning a temporary restraining order. That's a quick legal block, like a pause button on a judge's orders, that had been stopping the Trump administration from deploying National Guard members to Portland, Oregon. This decision paves the road for the White House to bring in troops from Oregon's own Guard to handle what the administration describes as civil disturbances, particularly around a federal Immigration and Customs Enforcement ICE facility where protests have been raging. Now, to clarify for those who might not be familiar, the National Guard is a reserve military force that can be called up by governors for state emergencies, but the president can federalize it, meaning take control and deploy it nationally if needed. It's a powerful tool, often used in disasters or unrest, but it raises big questions about who gets to decide when and where it's appropriate. The ruling didn't go all the way, though. A wider court order still stands that blocks any out-of-state National Guard forces from entering Portland. So, while Oregon troops are now fair game, no one's bringing in reinforcements from elsewhere just yet. Oregon's Attorney General, Dan Rayfield, didn't hold back in his reaction. He blasted the decision, claiming the judges have chosen not to hold the president accountable. In his words, this could embolden the administration to push for dissolving that broader restraining order too. And he urged the full Ninth Circuit to reverse the ruling before any illegal deployments happen. We'll continue to fight for Oregon's laws and values no matter what, he vowed. A defiant stance that highlights the deep divide between state and federal powers. Flash back to late September, when President Donald Trump issued an executive order to federalize about 200 Oregon National Guard members. His goal? To safeguard federal buildings amid what he called persistent protests at the Portland ICE facility. Even as local leaders voiced strong opposition, this move came despite pleas from city and state officials, leading to lawsuits that snowballed into this appellate showdown. The saga kicked off when Portland and Oregon sued, and U.S. District Judge Karen Immergut stepped in earlier this month. She halted the deployment, ruling that Portland's situation wasn't chaotic or violent enough to warrant a federal takeover of the Guard. Judge Immergut pointed out that Trump's claims about the city's conditions were simply untethered to the facts, like exaggerating a minor skirmish into a full-blown crisis. For beginners, think of it as a judge saying, the president is overreacting based on an incomplete picture. But the Ninth Circuit disagreed, finding that the Trump administration had a strong chance of winning on appeal. Their order stated, after considering the record at this preliminary stage, we conclude that it's likely that the president lawfully exercised his statutory authority to take control of the Guard. They acknowledged some protests were peaceful, but emphasized that many escalated into violence, with threats against federal officers and the building itself. This paints a picture of a situation that's not all sunshine and signs. Imagine barricades being breached or officials being harassed, which could justify a military presence to maintain security. The judges who delivered this majority opinion were Ryan Nelson and Bridget Bade, both nominated by Trump, while Susan Graber, appointed by former President Bill Clinton, dissented sharply. In her powerful rebuttal, Graber called the decision not merely absurd, but a threat to core constitutional principles, including states' rights over their own militias and Americans' First Amendment freedoms to gather and voice dissent against government actions. It's a classic clash. One side sees federal intervention as necessary for protection, the other as an assault on democracy itself. And this is the part most people miss, how these judicial appointments can tip the scales in such politically charged cases, potentially influencing the future of protests and power dynamics across the U.S. Adding another layer, Judge Immergut issued a second temporary restraining order just recently, after the administration tried to deploy California National Guard troops to Portland. That one hasn't been appealed yet, so it remains in place, keeping the door shut on cross-state deployments for now. As you've probably gathered by now, this isn't just about troops in Portland. It's a microcosm of bigger battles over federal overreach, protest rights, and how we define disruption in a free society. For instance, consider how similar deployments in other cities have sparked accusations of militarizing civilian spaces, leading to debates on whether it's a shield for federal interests or a sword against dissent. Some might argue it's a justified response to threats, while critics see it as stifling the very voices that make America vibrant. What do you think? Is this a step toward safety or a slippery slope toward authoritarianism? Does the president's authority here align with the Constitution, or does it risk undermining state sovereignty? Share your views in the comments below. I'd love to hear whether you side with the court's majority, the dissenters, or somewhere in between. Let's keep the conversation going.